sometimes those best honors are the ones that are unexpected. And this
Yeah.
one came completely out of the blue. For one of the few times in my life I was speechless. When
It didn't
Javier,
last.
no, it didn't last but about 30 seconds, but it was a glorious 30 seconds for this planet. Hey-o! Josie's on a vacation far away as we start recording episode number 136 of the Promo Front podcast. I am Bill Petrie, one of your hosts. With me, as always, let's call him the captain of corporate sponsorships, the one and only Kirby Hasseman. Kirby, we all got to know, are you in the new house yet? Are you there? Have you moved? What's going on?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Yes, I am officially sleeping, living in the new house. Very excited about that. With each passing day, like yesterday, I was in there, but the hot water wasn't quite working properly. So but today I took a hot shower in the house, slept in the house, winds all around. So, dude, I hashtag winning. I'm doing well, man. How are you doing?
That's awesome. I'm doing great. It's been a little stormy here. We're living in Nashville. Sometimes you never know what you're going to get. One day it is quite literally 22 degrees. The next day it's 60. So It's no wonder why we're always all coughing and sick.
Yeah.
But, that combination of hot and cold, it got me to thinking, Kirby, as things often do.
Yes, they do.
You and I have seen a ton of acquisitions and mergers during our time in the promotional products industry. And I can't think of one that makes more sense than the recent acquisition of Evans by our good pals over at HPG. Not only do the companies complement each other, but HPG has a long and rich history of allowing their family of companies to do what they've always done best. And I love that.
Yeah.
Now, in the case of Evans, HPG really loves how they have a culture of making the lives of their distributor partners easier. You and I have talked about that a lot on the podcast.
Yep.
For example, here's a recent quote from an Evans customer, and I love this one. Evans is our top go-to supplier. They have great service and great products. Everything is super easy and smooth sailing when ordering from Evans. Kirby, it's not often a supplier gets an unsolicited rave review like that, is it?
Yeah, it's really rare. And I think it goes to show you, I've often said that we're in the business of making promises for other people. And those of us who are in the distributor world quickly learn what organizations keep their promises and make their life, that is part of making my life easier, is I know that they do what they say they're going to do. And so, I think Evans certainly has a reputation for that. And it's exciting that HPG is letting that continue.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Evans has really set the standard when it comes to making the lives of our distributor partners easier. And it's really clear to me, and I think to everybody, that the marriage of HPG and Evans is not only going to benefit both companies, but it's also going to make the lives of all those distributor partners even just that much more easier. Frankly, that's what a union of companies is supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what the idea is. So when you're ready to make your life easier, Mr. or Mrs. Distributor, why don't you head over to Evans at evans-mfg.com. You're not going to be sorry you did. Now, Kirby, before you started recording, you and I had an arm wrestling contest virtually. We're not going to explain how that exactly worked, but you said you wanted the promo upfront section this morning.
Yeah.
I lost the said arm wrestling contest. So
to the surprise of no one.
To the surprise of no one. And as any mediocre talk show host across the nation might say, it's your dime, it's your dance floor. What do you got?
Yeah. So, I think we often say there are certain topics that we'd be tone deaf if we didn't bring up. It would be super weird if you were to bring this up, but I think it is newsworthy. I just wanted we don't have to spend a lot of time on this. We spend as much time on this as you want, but you were, I believe it was last week, inducted into the PPAMS Hall of Fame for, so much of the work that you've done in the promotional products and branded merchandise space. But I think the biggest reason, or at least, the reason I think of you in that space is not only the work you've done, but the service you've provided. And so I wanted to congratulate you and give you just
Thank
an
you.
opportunity to talk a little bit about what that was like when you got the call, because I know it's not something that you were expecting. I know
No.
that. So
Yeah.
if you don't mind, just talk a little bit about it, man.
I'll keep it very brief. Thank you for bringing it up. It's a huge honor, and one sometimes those best honors are the ones that are unexpected, and this
Yeah.
one came completely out of the blue. For one of the few times in my life I was speechless when
It didn't
Javier.
last.
No, it didn't last but about 30 seconds, but it was a glorious 30 seconds for this planet. When Javier LaFontaine from Showdown gave me a call and told me it was an overwhelming feeling. I don't really know what I've done to deserve it, to be very candid with you. And I know that probably sounds trite, but it's true. I don't really
Mm.
know. And the hardest thing I had to do was write an acceptance speech. And as much as I enjoy doing things like this with you, getting up in front of people and talking about marketing and branding, I was horrifically uncomfortable speaking about myself because
Sure.
you
It's
walk a
hard.
very fine line with being pompous but also respecting the moment that other people feel you deserve this honor.
Right.
And that was a struggle for me. But I settled on, really, as I reflected, I didn't have business success until I started really dedicating a ton of my time to volunteerism. And
Yeah.
that's what I made my acceptance speech about. And it's in my blog this week if anybody
Yeah.
wants to read it. It's on
Totally worth
brand the great
reading, I
marketing.
will say, because I've read it and he talks about his he gives his acceptance speech in there. Totally worth reading. Sorry, Bill, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but just
No, that's fine. That's totally fine. I appreciate you jumping in there. But what I look back and go, what was that seminal moment? I'm not sure what the seminal moment was, but I know that service to the PPAM's board was a big, giant part of it, and that really
yeah,
shifted my mindset. And so I challenged everybody, and I would challenge anybody on this podcast and anybody who speaks to me on the phone or in person. I generally end the conversation by asking, is there anything I can do for you?
yeah,
And that's a conscious decision I made about 10 years ago. Now it's an automatic. And I
yeah,
love asking that question because it allows people to accept help. And sometimes it's really hard to do that.
yeah,
So when you offer help with no expectation of anything in return, you really set the stage for a relationship that is fostered on symbiotic relationship.
yeah.
And I'm a big believer in that. So I just would, again, thank you for recognizing it. Thank you to the PPAMS board. Obviously, I wouldn't have gotten that award without you. And I mentioned you in my acceptance speech. You've been a very important part of my journey, and a bunch of other people as well. That I'm not going to, people can
Yeah.
read that if they want to. But it was a pretty humbling night. It was a really fun night. They did a great job, and as I said, I'm proud to be kind of the part of the permanent story of the Promotional Products Association of the Mid-South.
Yeah, it's really cool. So again, I don't want to belabor it, but I do want to say this is a really, really cool honor, and I was tickled for you. And I think that the sort of the lesson, and again, the blog was really good, is if you want to accelerate your growth in any career, accelerate your service. And so,
Yeah.
well said by you. So congrats,
Well, I
man.
appreciate it. It's true too.
Yeah.
So, you know what else is true? I've got, thank you very much. I'm glad we're not talking about that anymore, but I got to amp
Yeah.
this podcast right up. I got to
Sure.
turn it up to 11. I might even get to 12.
Yeah.
Hey, distributors, is your marketing working? Well, if you can't answer that question with a hearty, you know it, by golly. If you can't say that, then you need to reach out to our pals over at Promo Pulse. They can help you consistently amplify your sales through stunningly beautiful outbound marketing. That's so easy. You can customize it, set it, forget it in only how many minutes, Kirby?
5.
5 minutes. That's right.
I got it
Learn
right.
more at promopulse.io/amp. Okay, I've got quite a few here, but here's one I do want to talk about. Let's see. Boy, I've got so many here, Kirby.
It's
I just
so
don't know what to
exciting.
do. All right, let's talk about digital marketing trends according
Okay.
to Forbes.
Okay.
In 2023, these are their forecasted for digital marketing trends. There's 4 of them, and I want to talk them. Let's go each one by one. Let's share our thoughts. I don't know if anybody else cares, but I care about
Okay.
our
I love it.
thoughts.
Let's do it.
Number 1 digital marketing content trend for 2023 is live stream content and short form video. 23% of global viewing is watching live content. and it's growing. People don't
Mm,
want to miss out, right? That's the whole thing. So shorter
seriously.
videos hold the interest of the audience, but they have to be unprofessional. They have to be just
Mm.
very not overly slick, because those tend to be unrelatable. Kirby, what say you?
My first reaction to this is I felt like those are two sort of unrelated pieces of content because historically speaking, the live content is not short, right? Because you're telling a little bit more of a story. I mean, that's just my experience. I could be off on that, but that's my take. Is I think of, oh, it's going to be a product launch, or you're reporting
Right.
from an event, or you're doing something. You know, I'm thinking of some of the live stuff I saw done at PPAI. None of that stuff was 20 seconds long, right? Now that being said, I actually kind of dig that. I think that being a trend is kind of fun, and I think it does give us a behind the scenes. And then I do agree with the short stuff. That's actually if you're paying attention to any of our like Hossman marketing, we're actually making a push to do like TikTok. All of a sudden, we in
Okay.
the last week or two, we're doing TikTok and Instagram Reels, and it's much more of the 30 to 60-second pieces. We're having some fun with it, and so yeah, I buy that completely. I think that does make sense.
Yeah, I don't love I don't I'm not sure I'm a fan of the live content because I think you have way too much of a tune out factor. I
Mm.
don't think people are willing to give live video as much of a chance as they are a slightly produced video.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
So I think live videos are great. If you're going to hit somebody for 30, 45 seconds, live video is probably pretty cool. But beyond, I'd say 5 minutes, I think it's tough to hold the audience's attention unless you're really, really compelling.
Well, I would say
But I do,
I would say something
yeah,
like this, right? I'm seeing
yeah,
some like live streaming of podcasts or shows like that. I think those are feel a little different to me.
a little bit. But again,
Yeah.
they got to hold your attention. So I
Yeah, for
think
sure.
because I think it's what it is, what we're really talking about here, in my opinion, is pacing.
Mm,
Is the
yeah.
pacing of the content. Wow, I don't know. It just flew out of my mouth.
That's
As
all
I
right.
just had a sip of my coffee. I think it's about the pacing. If the pacing is fast and rapid and bouncy and quick and it feeds into everybody's lack of attention span, it works. The
Yeah.
second it doesn't, it does not.
Yeah.
So I think we kind of agree there. All right, number two, greater focus on customer experience. Digital marketing trend number two. You still have to maintain affordability and quality, but this is absolutely going to be true in the metaverse. This is what Forbes says. What say you? A greater focus on customer experience, Kirby.
I mean, I'm giving you my first impression of each one of these, and my first impression is
Yep.
great. That's exciting to me that organizations are going to start talking about experience. I think, the organizations that are forgettable are the ones that are transactional. And so
Yeah.
those who create an experience, our buddy Danny Rosen has been talking about that for a long time. Those in our space who not only deliver on the things that we're supposed to deliver on, but create an
Yeah.
experience around it are the one that makes total sense to me.
Yeah, of all of them, this was the one where, well, no shit, Sherlock. Of course,
Yeah,
there's a greater focus on customer experience. It's all
there better be.
anybody in the marketing and branding world has been talking about. Now, we in the industry sometimes tend to lag behind those trends. And this is not, this article is not written about promotional products,
Sure.
but there should absolutely always be on a greater focus on customer experience. And that's from the moment you first reach out to them to the time you close the sale. That's an
Yeah.
entire experience. What does that look like? So totally agree there, Kirby. Number three, digital marketing trends. Brands need to show accountability. I love this one.
Yeah.
Modern consumers place a premium on social responsibility, integrity, and accountability. 41% of millennials and 50% of Gen Z are more likely to support brands that advocate for social causes. That's their research. Kirby, do you agree that brands need to show accountability into 2023 in terms of digital marketing trends?
Yeah. And again, again, two times now I've said it feels like two different things.
Okay.
Social responsibility is one thing. I think accountability is another. So when I think of accountability, I think, look, every organization has their faux pas, right? That they mess up. And when I see that, I love it when organizations like it reminds me of the book Hug Your Haters by Jay Baer,
Mm-hmm.
where he
I got it
talks
right
about,
over there.
look, when somebody has a bad experience that you engage with them digitally and so that's what I think of when I think of accountability, not necessarily saying, all right, we are all in on this specific issue. So maybe I'm reading that wrong.
No, I happen to agree with you. This one was a bit of a disconnect for me. I felt like they were shoving 14 different things
Right.
into one point.
Yeah.
Um, I think I think there's tangible accountability that every company needs to stand for. You stand behind your products, your services, the way you go to market, all those things. And then there's a social responsibility aspect,
Yeah.
which those two are very different in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah.
But
Unless you want
again,
to
that
take
doesn't make
accountability for not actually living up to the things that you say that you're socially
correct.
responsible for.
Exactly. I mean, again, not to make any one more important or less important. I
Yeah.
just think they're different. So, okay, the fourth one, the final one, digital marketing trend for 2023. This one surprised me. Podcasting.
Hmm. That is
Because
interesting.
we've been hearing for a long time it's on the way out.
Yeah.
Well, what they said is the always on consumer base benefits greatly from a company's ability to share its story via a podcast. Now, I would like your thoughts on that.
Well, I mean, it goes to no surprise. I mean, how many podcasts do you and I produce, right? Like we've got this
Yep.
one. We're getting ready to launch another one. For us, delivering marketing joy essentially is a podcast as well. Yeah, I believe that podcasting is powerful, which is the reason that I spend so much time and energy on it. The
Yep.
reality of it is, it gives people a chance. Much like social media, but in a different way. Gives people a chance to like, know, and trust you at scale. And
Yep.
so, yeah, I'm a believer because we're sitting here doing one.
Absolutely. I'm 100% a believer. And look, we've been doing a weekly podcast, Kirby and I have, say for a 5-week hiatus in 2020 for 7 or 8 years now. I can't remember.
A
Seven's
long
about
time.
7. Long time. And there are times it's hard. There are
Yeah.
times it feels like a grind. There are times where just like everybody else who's listening, there's times you wake up and like, I don't want to do that today.
Yeah.
I don't
Right.
feel like being a yuck monkey today.
Mm-hmm.
But then you go to something like a PPAI Expo.
Yep.
And this year, for both Kirby and I will speak for you here. You can
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong. We were both astounded by how many people who we didn't know, who we knew, who we thought we knew, maybe knew, came up to us and says, "Hey, man, keep up the good work. Really like what you guys are doing on the podcast." And they said
Yeah.
it to me, they said it to Kirby, and they said it to us independent, or to us as a group, as a duo. That was the word I was looking for. Yeah, it was amazing. So
Yeah.
if you don't think it still has reach, a well done podcast, you're wrong. Got, again, pacing. It's got to work. You got
Yeah.
to have
Of course.
chemistry if you're doing it with someone else and all that. But yeah, I don't think it's on the way out at all.
And I think, I've talked about this for several years now, is I think that one of the things, number one, I actually think podcasting is one of the harder things to really track the analytics of. We've talked about this for years, listens and downloads and this and that. And because,
Yep.
Apple isn't always great about sharing information. Again, it's not a knock.
No.
It is the hardest when somebody says how many people are listening, it's hard. But whether it's 2 or 25 or 2,500, the thing that an event like the Expo reminds me is if it's 25, it's not the same 25 every week.
Right.
It's not the same 100 every week. People will, there'll be some that are your standard that listen every week and they're your hardcore fans, but people are bopping in and out because they're busy. And I think it's one of those things where I have to look at the way I consume media. Like there are several podcasts I love, but I don't listen to them every time. Some of them grab me and maybe I listen to one for 5 minutes and one I listen to the whole way. And I think that the people who are listening to your podcast are doing the same, but yet that's why the consistency thing matters so much.
For this podcast, for example, we average somewhere around I always say, does it pass the red face test? Because it is hard to get every bit of analytics from everywhere. It's about 1,100 people, which is a ton of people. Is it the
really
same 1,100 people every week? No, it's not, because like you said, people have busy lives. But anyway, thought that was a really interesting article from from Forbes regarding digital marketing. All right, Kirby, do you have a topic for us today?
Yeah. So again, speaking of tone deaf, so this weekend, like right after this drops, the big game, the Super Bowl will be on.
Big game.
And we're not a sports talk show, so we can talk football if you want. I love football, but I thought we'd talk ads. And I think that the headline is that crypto is out and alcohol is in this year.
Okay.
For the Super Bowl ads. Fox announced that they're all booked up. It actually took a little longer this year than I think they thought, but the booze business has been waiting 33 years for this because Anheuser-Busch was the exclusive. They had exclusive rights since 1989, but now other brands are jumping in. So you've got Heineken and Remy Martin and Crown Royal, and of course, just your standard, Miller Lite and all those guys as well. So I guess my question is, do you think that makes sense for the alcohol folks? What's your take on it? What are you looking forward to? I love Super Bowl ads. So,
Yeah, we both do.
yeah, so I'm excited about this. I wanted to get your take.
So I'm going to combine your topic with the topic I was going to bring up a little later, but I was going to talk about Super Bowl ad costs. So I'm going to weave
Okay,
that into
yeah,
the conversation. So
love it.
we'll kill two birds with one stone. The question is, do I think it makes sense for all these spirits-based companies, alcohol beer companies, to jump in because Anheuser-Busch is no longer the exclusive malted partner of the National Football League? Yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah.
I think it's smart. I mean, if you look at say what you will about it, positive, negative, but it's an is. Alcohol consumption during the pandemic went up. People started doing mixology at home. People started really kind of realizing, I like this, I like that better. Oh, that's much better. It was a little hot. Sorry, my camera was getting a little warm there, guys.
Yeah.
So I think it makes all sorts of sense for them to jump in on it. I'm super excited to see the Dave Grohl, who is one of my heroes from Foo Fighters. I'm ready to see that Crown Royal ad. I think that's going to be pretty epic. I'm excited to see all of them. Now, do you know, Kirby, is there any ones you're looking forward to before I jump into my little section of this?
You know, I'm a big fan of Gary Vaynerchuk, so I know VaynerMedia has a couple spots, new
Oh, do they?
Pepsi,
Okay.
yeah, and with Ben Stiller and Steve Martin. So I'll be looking forward to seeing that one. But you know what? I actually usually go into, you know how you can usually preview stuff. I actually try not to, because I want to see them with fresh eyes, so that
Me
I can
too.
really enjoy them. I'll go back and watch them later, just because I'm a nerd about that. But yeah, no, I don't know that I have one specific one, although it seems like Doritos always knocks it out of the park.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. All right, so most of them sold between $6 million and $7 million. So let's call it 6.5 million.
Okay.
No real change from last year in terms of the pricing for a 30-second commercial. Now, did you know this, Kirby? The cost for an ad in the first Super Bowl, $40,000 for a 30-second ad. Now, granted, that was 1967, so
Yeah,
you have to adjust things, and I
well,
don't math.
and football wasn't the thing that it is
No,
today.
no. Well, and that was broadcast on two networks, by the way. That's for the
Interesting.
Super Bowl.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Both CBS and NBC, or it was ABC and NBC. I can't remember which. But anyway, they crossed the $100,000 per 30-second spot number in 1975.
Okay.
And they hit the $1 million mark for a 30-second ad in 1995. So it's not this dramatic increase I think we always associate with how much Super Bowl ads cost. I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah.
Now, are you surprised as well it hasn't risen as dramatically as you thought?
Well, I think the reality of it is, when you look at one spot for $6.5 million, I can go both ways on this argument, because I think because it's not, of course, the production of it, and the production of it's going to cost a lot more than that too. So it's such a bite for each individual spot. What I would say is, despite the fact that it's such a bite, I'm not sure it's not still a great value. There are just very few things on earth these days that are not segmented in in every which way. Whereas, gosh, the most eyeballs of anything are on that particular moment. And people are actually, not only are they there, but they're actually like us. I love football, and I'm not going to walk away for the commercials. So it is a unique experience where I think $6.5 million actually might be a value.
It's the only experience left where we don't intentionally, live sports, specifically the Super Bowl, but live sports is really the one experience we have left where we don't record and fast forward through commercials.
Yeah.
It's really the only experience we have left. All right. So with that in mind, because you said value, and I love that, Kirby. All right, Kirby, I'm giving you $6.5 million right now.
Great.
But you have to spend it on advertising.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm taking the money from that you might spend on a Super Bowl ad, and you need to spend on advertising. What do you do? Now, if you want to use it on a Super Bowl ad, you can do that. That is not off limits. I'm not going to be that draconian here, but you have 6.5 million simoleons.
Okay.
What do you do with it for advertising? And you have to spend it, let's say, in one calendar year, if you don't blow it all at the Super Bowl.
Yeah. So for, let's say, my business is what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay. So if I had the infrastructure in place where we could, like, I'm not an online, I don't sell a lot online. We're not for imprint. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, if
Right.
I were for imprint, I'd do a Super Bowl ad. The
Right.
end. Done.
But you're not.
I'm not. Um, Boy, it would be tough though,
It's
because
tough,
again,
isn't it?
because the eyeballs are so valuable. If I could get the
Yeah.
infrastructure in place where I could say, okay, I've got this particular widget or these specific numbers of widgets, I just don't know that there's much better value if you have the money than doing the Super Bowl ad.
Yeah.
Outside of that, um, uh,
I think I've stumped him, kids.
yeah, I think, well, what my problem is I'm trying to think across platforms. So,
Yeah.
needless to say, I'd be using branded merch as a part of that $6.5 million. Whether it
Mhm.
was appreciation style of the businesses we have and looking at a way that we could then target a specific audience and then go after them with direct mail, with merch, which all that stuff. I do events targeting that specific niche, and then I would do Facebook and Instagram ads.
Okay.
So those would be probably my, and I'm sure there'd be other stuff, but off the top of my head, those would be the places I'd go.
I think that's great. I would figure out if I'm going to ask myself some question, and I purposely wrote this down and have not given it an ounce of thought. And I
Okay.
did that purposefully, and that's very difficult to do.
Yeah.
But I did it. And what I came up with was, I think and I did it while you were talking. I think what I would do, obviously a little bit of Facebook and online stuff, but I think I'd figure out a way to have a sponsorship deal, whether it's on the ice of a pro hockey team,
Mm,
whether it's the Predators or Dallas Stars, or I want some sort of tie-in with something I am passionate about with either sports or music. And
okay.
music's a very hard thing to get your brand on, so I'd probably end up with sports. So maybe it's a patch for a baseball team, or something like that. I think that would be kind of cool. It would be certainly an ego-filled thing, no question. If you
Sure.
have $6.5 million to spend on advertising, trust me, there's ego invested in that,
Sure.
100%.
Yeah.
So I think I would do that, or I might just do a Super Bowl ad. I don't know. I don't know. I come back
Well,
to
it
that the
goes
same
back
thing
to
you do, the eyeballs.
yeah, it goes back to the idea of brand marketing versus direct marketing. And I guess
Yeah.
what I was bouncing around in my head is, for these alcohol places, the brand marketing makes sense. But for my
Mhm.
business, the brand market, that would be blowing money to just have them know our name. I would need to figure
Right.
out a way to be transactional, at least at some point, a part of that. And
Right.
so figured out
It's
a way that we could drive people to our site, do something
right.
that would drive traffic and sales.
in in my business being a little bit different is more about brand marketing. It
Yeah.
is more about that. So it's an interesting conversation. All right, Kirby. I've got one last topic for us
Okay.
today. I've
Love it.
got a question for you, my friend.
Okay.
When you get a phone call that you don't recognize the number on your cell phone, what is the percentage of time you will answer that call?
Um, I would say now, if okay, so the only thing I'd say is there are some that actually come up and they say potential spam. If they actually
No.
say
I'm
potential
just talking about
spam,
just
zero.
I'm just talking about just a regular, it's a phone call. It might come from your area code. It might come from Oklahoma City area code. It doesn't know. Not in your contact list. Let's put it that way. Not in your contact list.
I would put I'm probably 40% answering, just
Okay.
because if it's local, like, a lot of times I will pick up.
Yeah. Okay. I would say my is like 3%. I
Yeah.
answer that. No, I'm talking about my personal phone, not my
Yep.
business phone. Business
Sure.
phone's different.
Yep.
So there's a solution out there that I stumbled across.
Okay.
That's called branded caller ID.
Okay.
And what it is, it allows companies to reassure their customers about the calls they receive. Business can show the name of the business, a location where they're from, the logo, and my favorite part is the reason they're calling. It might
Hmm.
say, and I'm going to use this as the cover this week, like the NFL might be calling about your ticket request for the Super Bowl. So before you answer the phone, you know who it is. It's verified. Um,
Oh, I think that's
super,
powerful.
super, very powerful. So this way, customers can quickly identify who's calling and why without the risk of spoofing or a scam or things like that. Now, this can be done using a voice over internet protocol, VoIP service, or a third party service. I thought this was, I don't know how long this has been around, but I stumbled across it as I was looking for topics, and I thought immediately, what an absolute game changer this might be in the entire world of sales. And I
Yeah.
want your opinion on it.
Yeah, I mean, so part of my thing is because of the Airbnb stuff and all the real estate stuff, we get a lot of calls that are legitimate that aren't in our contact list because
Sure.
they're hey, I need a place to stay or whatever.
Yeah.
So we probably answer a little higher number. But if it, like you said, I mean, if it's somebody like that just purposefully put it out there and said, here's why, I mean, again, if nothing else, it would get my attention because there's so many
Absolutely.
numbers that just don't give you anything. So if it said,
Right.
hell, I'm not sure if it said sales, I might be like, all right,
Right.
let's hear this.
Well,
Because
you know,
you mentioned real quick, you mentioned the accountability as a digital trend. Like this is a transparency, accountability kind of thing where it's like, hey,
absolutely,
look,
it
yeah,
is.
this is sales. This is what we're
It's
doing. And like, I think
it's
that's kind of interesting.
conveying trust immediately.
Yeah.
That because I mean, I'm sure you get calls like I do. Every once in a while, I get a call and they didn't put in they try to do it from a 615 area code, which is Nashville where I live, and they don't put it in right, so it comes in up as Australia because they added an extra number or missed a number or something like that. And of course, I never answer those calls, but there's something like this could be an absolute game changer for, we're in a society, and if you're in sales, it's almost impossible to get someone on the phone. It really is. People are much happier just responding to an email, whether they want to admit it or not. That's the world we live in.
Yeah.
And so something like this, I think, is really cool. Now, again, it sounds like you have to have a voice over internet protocol phone system to do that. So I don't think this is cell phone to cell phone at this point.
Yeah.
But I can't believe we're that far off from something like this. But the services I saw who are selling this for people who have those hardwired phones, it literally, you can type in why you're calling before you call. It's amazing.
Cool. That's really
amazing
cool.
stuff.
I like it. All
man.
right.
All right. Anything else before we wrap it up, Kirby, or is it time to wrap?
I think that's about it, brother.
As the fabulous Thunderbirds once saying, let's wrap it up. All right. Yeah, I had to sing once at least.
Yeah, no, it's good.
I'm not gonna. There's no way I'm singing the outfield song that we started off with. But hey, Kirby, here is something I'm absolutely going to do, and that's thank our good pals over at Evans, who is now part of the HPG family of brands. We talk about Evans' perspective and how they are so completely focused on making the lives of their distributor partners easier. And one of the great things about HPG acquiring Evans is they have no interest in changing that. In fact, they want to learn how they do that to assist their other family, other brands in the HPG family. And I love that. They are really doing a great job of bringing those two organizations together. And I couldn't think of a better marriage. And we talked about that at the top of the podcast. So, hey, distributors looking to make your lives a little bit easier? Of course you are. Do yourself a favor. Let's go ahead. Run to your Google machine or your portable Google machine, whatever's handy, and go over to evans-mfg.com. You're not going to be sorry you did. Kirby, thanks as always for having the courage to podcast with me. I always enjoy it. And thanks again for the kind words about the Hall of Fame.
Congrats, man.
That's right.